Assistant Secretary for Planning Department and Development Commissioner. His expertise lies in public policy, governance, and public administration. Before I call upon the speaker, I would like to request our Vice Chancellor to please felicitate the guest. Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. Ajit Rana to please give his opening remarks.
Thank you, Pratisha, and good afternoon to everybody. So, I'm very happy to have our speaker, Mr. Sitaram Kunte, as Pratisha introduced him. He was former Chief Secretary of Government of Maharashtra and various other things, but more importantly, he is also currently a faculty, a visiting faculty, and those of you who are taking the public policy course have already had a chance to listen to him. One little tidbit about him that perhaps you didn't know and Pratisha did mention, he's also a trained economist and he got a master's degree at the Delhi School of Economics. So I'm very happy that he's here. And the topic, as you know, is his perspectives on lateral entry. Now, lateral entry is very much topical right now because, as you know, just last week on the 17th of August, I think, the government put out an advertisement to the UPSC, Union Public Service Commission, announcing the job openings for about 45 positions at levels of joint secretary, deputy secretary, and so on, which is what we popularly call as lateral entry. And just within 3 days, the government decided to withdraw that ad, and therefore that scheme, at least that ad stands cancelled, and I will rethink on it, and maybe we'll have a revised formulation of that lateral entry. So that has led to a lot of discussion. So it is very topical that somebody who has actually spent decades in government service, who is a faculty and academician now himself, and who is a deep thinker and an economist, and has been a policymaker, can give us his perspective. So I just want to spend a couple of minutes on the issue as far as, from my, what my understanding is. We think that people who are in government, it's a very tough process. You have nowadays, so you have these several years of coaching and then entrance exam and interviews and so on, and only about 1% gets through into levels, various governments, state or center. And then after that one test or once you get through, then for the next 40 years, you're in government service and you have to deal with or decide on, think about, strategize, plan on variety of subjects. You could be in textile ministry one day, a couple of years later, you could be handling, let's say, tourism, and then you could be deciding on the policy for cryptocurrency or now artificial intelligence regulation of broadcast bill. So it is quite natural to think that how can one person be an expert on so many things? It's it's humanly impossible. So therefore, the idea of lateral entry is to have an opportunity. So basically, you need some expert, and we are a growing economy, fast growing economy, so things are becoming complex even as the economy grows. So the idea is that we need to have some expertise from outside, because the outside experts bring in domain expertise, perhaps they bring in innovation, they bring something. What happens when you have long years in government, and with due respect to you, sir, perhaps there is some inertia or some kind of thinking becomes a little rigid. So outsiders bring in some innovative or diversity. They bring in global best practices, perhaps. So that's, there are the positives, and therefore, but the negatives are. So I'm not, by the way, giving a lecture before Mr. Kunte, but I just thought my thoughts are. So there are pros and cons. So this is a question that needs a balance. The cons are that these outsiders will culturally not fit in. So therefore, temporarily, first of all, they will tend to have a short-term outlook, or they will not have institutional memory, or perhaps it is not fair, that the people who have got into government have done so much effort and so much hard work of getting and passing that UPSC exam, and it's not fair कि इनको तो walk in just with an interview. So there are all these issues. So the cons are that also that they may bring in something which might potentially be a conflict of interest. So these are the pros and cons. And But just to remind you, by the way, going back to the 1950s, we have had lateral entry. From the 1950s, there used to be something called the Industrial Management Pool. So Mr. Mantosh Sondhi or Mr. Lavraj Kumar, subsequently Mr. V. Krishnamurthy, who was responsible for revival of sales, Street Steel Authority of India, and Maruti. Before Mr. R.C. Bhargava, there was V. Krishnamurthy. And don't forget, the milk revolution in India happened because of Mr. Kurian. Of course, he joined government temporarily, so you can say Amul was not government. But Aadhar, Mr. Nandan Nilekani, and of course the popular names are people like Montek Singh Ahluwalia and Rakesh Mohan and Shankaracharya. And in fact, our own Pune Vice President of Pune International Center, Dr. Vijay Kelkar, was Finance Secretary of India. So they are all examples, but these examples, except for Nilekani, which is more recent, they are all kind of 30, 40 years ago. So as the economy becomes bigger and the bureaucracy is a little more complex and can handle more expertise, perhaps the relevance and context of those lateral entries cannot be brought into the present context, I think. But let's not forget. So, of course, what I'm not mentioning all this is the aspect about reservation. That there was a fear, it was not clear, there's no clarity whether these lateral entries were not going to be subject to the reservation policy. Because we have a policy like government jobs, there is a reservation policy for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and OBCs. So, are the lateral entry people going to bypass this? That was not made clear, but I think that's also a big issue. So, socially, we need to be inclusive. And then, my final comment would be, sir, for your consideration, that while there is all this debate about lateral entry for the bureaucracy, what seems to have happened in the last 10 years is that we have lateral entry at the ministerial level. So we have an expert who has domain expertise who's become the railways minister, or a domain expert has become the external affairs minister, and so on and so forth. So what is, just in a lighter vein, but at the ministerial level perhaps you had some kind of lateral entry. So with those words, I welcome Ms. Kunte and so over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramesh, and good evening to all of you who have come to listen to this talk on lateral entry, perspectives on lateral entry. A couple of days back, Dr. Amade asked me whether I would speak on this topic, and he wanted me to speak on the same afternoon, probably the day I was traveling back to Mumbai last Friday. And I said that instead of randomly speaking my views, I must do some research and draw upon my own experience and then present a cogent point of view on lateral entry, which will make all of you think also of what is the way forward. So I have drawn upon my long experience in managing GAD, General Administration Department, which is in private sector terms, HR of government. Okay, so I did 3 years as additional chief secretary of GAD in Maharashtra and 1 year as chief secretary. In both capacities, as chief secretary, I was head of the civil service of Maharashtra. So I got all the inside view of how various processes with respect to establishment work, and based on that experience and whatever has happened recently in the last 10 days or so, I have prepared my presentation, and I would like to take you into some details and nuances of how things function. So let's start. August 2024, who is the actor UPSC, and UPSC notified a lateral entry advertisement for 45 posts. What happened immediately thereafter? Immediately next day, Mallikarjun Kharge ji, LOP in Rajya Sabha, he tweeted against lateral entry. Very long tweet. You can check out his timeline, and he tweeted against lateral entry. On the same day, Rahul Gandhi, LOP of Lok Sabha, he also tweeted. With somewhat difference, the wordings were same. The wordings were different, but content was the same. Then 19th August, Ashwini Vaishnav came up to defend this whole policy. And he also tweeted, sent out a long tweet defending this lateral entry. Then we don't know what happened. Suddenly, undated letter surfaces. Undated. The letter does not have a date. This is written by Mr. Jitendra Singh, MOS, Department of Personnel and Training. That is the department which looks after all writes to UPSC Chairman Preeti Sudan to withdraw this advertisement. And that letter is a long 2-page letter which I will refer to later on. And then on 21st August, Ashwini Vaishnavi tweets to justify this decision to withdraw the lateral entry notification. So he has done his job well to defend both the issue of notification and withdrawal. So let us try and understand. Dr. Anade has given some brief outline of his thoughts about lateral entry, but let's understand what is this controversy. So let's understand what is lateral entry. What are the merits of this system? Definitely there are some merits which we need to look at. What are the experiences so far? What is the current controversy? We'll go into details of that. And is there a harmonious way forward? That is the kind of question that I would need. So lateral entry, the examples that Dr. Amade mentioned, Manmohan Singh ji, Montek Singh, or Rakesh, Mohan and others, they came at a very high level. So that is not what this lateral entry is about. So this lateral entry policy that we are talking about is a mechanism to appoint individuals from outside government, directly to mid and senior level positions. Okay, so mid and senior level are basically defined as joint secretary, director and deputy secretary. So these are not very high secretary level, or even Nandan Nilekani came straight as chairman of UD authority, Aadhaar authority. So these are not those type of posts. So first thing we have to remember is this. The second is that who are the individuals we want into this lateral entry. So we want individuals who should have domain specific expertise. Okay, so if we are looking at civil aviation ministry, we want somebody who knows that sector. If we are looking at petroleum ministry, we want somebody who knows the petroleum sector. So domain specific expertise. They say in the advertisement that he or she should bring fresh perspective. Now, how that will be determined? Most likely during interviews with the UPSC. And proven track record with experience of private sector. So basically it means that somebody who is doing very well in, say, Indigo or SpiceJet or somebody, he can be inducted, he or she can be inducted into the ministry to deal with certain specific aspects. And then the third component of this policy is that the individual whom we are selecting, he or she should be willing to work for 3 to 5 years. The initial appointment is for 3 years, extendable by 2 years. So that willingness should be there, not that I'll work for only 11 months or 12 months like that. Not like that. So these are the components. So what are the advantages of having lateral entry? So 4 main advantages. First is induction of skill and expertise. That is absolutely clear that what we are looking at is skill and expertise coming from that domain into the ministry, the concerned ministry. It is not as if a civil aviation person will come into agriculture ministry. No, into the same ministry of that domain expertise. Second is that person will facilitate innovation and reform through fresh perspective, which is quite likely because bureaucracy becomes jaded, it's sort of in the system, in the rut, so they don't think fresh ideas, so maybe fresh perspectives. They will bring change in the work culture. They have a more fast-moving kind of experience in the private sector, so they may bring that experience into government. And the last is that there is always some staffing deficiency in government, so they will fill the gap which, due to shortage of staff, it is there in the government. So let us look at the history of this lateral entry, not the lateral entry at top levels that Dr. Amade just talked about, this kind of policy. So this was recommended first time by Second Administrative Reforms Commission. Okay. Second Administrative Reforms Commission, and that suggested that we should have lateral entry into administration. But then the real momentum started in 2017, when Niti Aayog recommended the introduction of lateral entry. Okay, Niti Aayog, that was constituted in 2018. In 2018, Government of India introduces lateral entry scheme for Joint Secretary, Director and DS level positions in the ministry. Then in 2019, the first phase of lateral entry was completed with the induction of 8 joint secretaries. So it is not as if this 45 is the first time that is happening. Then 2022, the second phase of lateral entry happened for 30 posts. Okay, out of which 3 were joint secretaries and 27 posts were at director level. So this was the second phase. And in 2023, there was a third phase of recruitment. And that time, I think 37 posts were recruited. So this was not the first time that lateral entry started. 3 cycles have already happened. There were protests, but probably the voice of the protest was very feeble and nothing happened. So we got these people in next. So far, what has happened? In the 3 recruitment cycles, total 63 people have been recruited. 63. And apparently they have all joined because they have joined. And then when I recently, in order to prepare for this talk, when I started finding out how many are still there, so roughly I get an idea that anywhere between 50 to 55 are still there. They are either joint secretaries or director or deputy secretaries. So in this background, this requisition to UPSC for 45 posts was made. So it is not as if something new was started. It was started, it has gone through 2-3 cycles, and this was made, and this became controversial, this particular notification. So we'll see how it became controversial. So what has been the experience so far in this? This is all again not based on any empirical research. This is based on my interaction with my colleagues. So you can imagine that this would be somewhat biased towards the perspective of the IAS officers who are dealing with this new bunch of people. So what did they tell me when I interacted with them, that what is your experience with lateral exams? So first they said that most of them have been onboarded in advisory roles. Okay, in ministries there are roles of joint secretaries, directors, deputy secretaries that have powers. They can release budgets, they can approve various things, projects and so on and so forth. But none of the secretary thought it fit to put them in those decision-making roles. They are mostly onboarded in advisory roles. So maybe some apprehension in how to give them, decision-making roles. The second one, which they told me, it is their perspective, that lateral entrance found it difficult to fit in the bureaucratic environment. They must be used to a larger, better speed of working. And my ministries are typically, laid-back places. It looks like they are laid-back places. So third was that many lateral entrants found it difficult to navigate the labyrinth of government. You know the labyrinth of government? That is, for any process you have to meander through so many desks and things like that. So if a lateral entrant wants a policy made and he submits a draft policy proposal in the ministry, the first thing will happen to that draft policy is it will go to at least 6 other ministries for comments. And within those 6 other ministries, 2-3 silos within those ministries. And it takes a bit of time for the comments to come, then you have to respond to them, it goes back again, back and forth. That's how policies are made, and this guy may lose patience. If he is from private sector where you can just pick up your proposal, go to the managing director, just convince him and he signs on it, that is not going to happen here. So that was one point which I was told. Then next next was mindset problems. This is again the perspective of permanent bureaucracy towards lateral entrance. So they said that they come with this idea that all government officers don't work, they are lazy, they are inefficient, etc. And so that mindset plays upon them, and that's why friction arises within the ministry. And then a lateral entrant does not know the other, the wheels within wheels of government, which is basically, service, seniority, who reports to whom, what happens, those things that they don't do. So this was their experience. So now what is the current controversy? So after this 45 notification for 45 posts was issued, and as I told you, so many tweets started coming. So we can list out the nature of controversy as follows. So the first was, it says it's a ploy to circumvent reservation policy, okay, mandated by the constitution. So this I call it as a social justice argument, which is what we'll dwell into later. It was made by Rahul Gandhi, MBA, even Chirag Paswan, who is part of NDA government, he also said. Akhilesh Yadav, Tejasvi Yadav, they are part of the opposite camp, so they said. I think Mayawati also said on this. So this was the biggest challenge to this. The second was from Veerappa Moili, the person who was chairman of the second Administrative Reforms Commission, who indicated that there should be lateral entry. He himself commented that this whole concept is being operationalized from a mindset that SC, ST, OBCs are not capable. He makes that allegation. Now, whether it is true or not, difficult to figure out. Then these are two other serious allegations that have been made. First, that it is a mechanism by which corporates will infiltrate inside the government with harmful consequences. So today, if a corporate has a work in the ministry, okay, what they do is they appoint a liaising person in Delhi. They hire a premises, which is their office in Delhi. There are a couple of people, they are paid, and those people run around in the ministries to get the work done. Now they are saying that they don't have to set up their liaising officers anymore. You can just put your person in the ministry, and inside he will do all your bidding, all your job. Then the next is, that it is not the allegation is that this is not to professionalize the functioning of ministry. This is more to reward the ideological fellow travelers. So you can draw your meaning, whatever it means, but ideological fellow travelers to accommodate this appeal. One criticism is, why would a private sector person come to government at a lower salary when he is getting higher? So the motive must be that he wants some extra income or something like that. So that is one more criticism. Next. Then it adversely affects promotional prospects of people who are already there in the system, which is the argument coming from incumbent bureaucrats. Then this point that we say that we want lateral entrance for bringing expertise, but the qualifications mentioned really don't indicate so much of expertise as just the experience of private sector. And then expertise itself is a nebulous concept. So suppose you are in agriculture ministry and you get somebody in the name of expertise. Let's say somebody who has a lot of knowledge about fertilizers, but you have to make policy about seeds, and he may not be expert in seeds. Or you have to make policy about some other domain, BT cotton or something like that, and this guy may not know about it. So expertise itself, one-to-one correlation of that is difficult to establish. Next. main objections and then move to the most significant point of social justice. So first is there a mindset that SC, ST, OBC are not competent, and is it because of this mindset that the proponents of a lateral entry system are saying that you must get lateral entry? Because as Dr. Anade rightly mentioned, in the lateral entry system there is no reservation. So in effect, there is some subtle mindset operating underneath as undercurrent of thought that we want open candidates, unreserved candidates rather than SC, ST, OBC. Very difficult to establish, but cannot be entirely ruled out, because if you talk to many people, some are okay, some don't believe this, some do indicate indirectly this type of idea. Next. Now for corporate or ideological infiltration, this is a serious allegation and we have to deal with this upfront, and that is who is the recruiting entity as per this notification. It is the UPSC. Next. So the primary responsibility of due diligence about the candidate, both about qualification and other things, but also to figure out whether it's a hit job or not. Is some corporate trying to plant their officer into our ministry? That has to be determined by UPSC and the recruiting ministry. They have to guard against hit job being done, and if hit job gets done, it will be very, very dangerous. So can they detect and prevent this kind of hit job attempts? We don't know. We have seen in the recent past 2 examples. Pooja Kedkar, she could game the whole system, produce all sorts of certificates and just land up there. And the current ongoing controversy about Madhvi Puri Buch, that she had some dealings in offshore funds, and so she is a regulator of entities whom she is supposed to investigate. I mean, these kind of things are quite possible. These are examples that we have to take on board and be cautious that such kind of thing can happen. So UPSC and the ministry have to guard against this. Next. Motives of candidates: are they accepting lower pay because upar ki kamai that can take care of their whatever is salary loss? Unlikely to happen. Some may be motivated by those factors. But I also know that a CV of a private sector person saying that he or she has been in government for 5 years as director, joint secretary level is going to have a huge boost. So it is likely that a person takes this position only to spruce up the CV and not really to make unlawful gains from the government service. So this is the main core of this current controversy. We have dealt with minor criticisms comparatively. So this is the main core. Does the idea of lateral entry collide with the idea of social justice? This was the point made by all opposition people, and it forced them to revoke the notification. But I'll take you through some of the excerpts of the letter of Jitendra Singh, Minister of State, and let's see how government itself has made social justice as a pivot for the U-turn, so-called U-turn, because U-turn is a political secretary, additional secretary, joint secretary. But establishment schedule goes much beyond that. So there will be many layers below this. Director, deputy secretary, etc. So that is there, and right up to peon and driver and everybody is listed in the establishment schedule. So I can't show all that in an organogram, but next slide. So typically this is how establishment schedule is prepared. It's a very detailed, it runs into pages in any ministry or department. So just a snapshot of it. So you may have a secretary who is one post of the secretary, you may have 2 or 3 in the ministry, and pay band is level 17, that is the apex scale we call it. So these are different pay bands. You may have secretary, additional secretary, 5 joint secretaries, 5 directors, 20 deputy secretaries, under secretaries, and so on. And when we make the establishment schedule, this also helps us to make the estimate of budget, establishment budget required, salary, etc. You can easily compute from this, multiply by this, and also these days computers can help us with that. The interesting part is how these posts will be appointed. That is also indicated in the schedule of establishment. So we say that, for example, secretary will come from the IAS, additional secretary from IAS, joint secretary from IAS. Then these may come from IAS or Central Secretariat Service, like that. So we indicate from which cadre a person will come. So concept of cadre is very important. Okay, so if you look at Home Ministry today, Home Ministry has 3 or 4 secretaries, but one of them, 3 will come from IAS, 1 will come from IPS. It is another cadre, IPS. So once we have understood the establishment schedule concept, the next concept is the cadre. So cadre is cadre of officers. You have IAS cadre, IPS cadre, you have revenue services, central secretariat services, number of cadres that are there. So what happens for every cadre? There is a pyramidal structure. You have people at the junior level, the mid level, senior level. And this whole cadre is managed by somebody called the Cadre Controlling Authority. So for the IAS, Cadre Controlling Authority is Chief Minister of the state and Prime Minister of the country. We are all India service, so we are under dual control. If you have a revenue service, it will be controlled by Finance Minister. Okay? And likewise, so many services are controlled by so many Cadre Controlling Authorities. Next. So they maintain the cadre structure, Cadre Controlling Authority. Okay? And Cadre Controlling Authority plays a pivotal role in cadre management, what we call cadre management. That is recruitment, training, disciplinary action. Everything is done by the Cadre Controlling Authority. So this is just a typical example of IAS cadre. So we have all over India about 5,000 officers. So this is not exact number. I am just indicating this is how a cadre is established. So you have in junior time scale the junior most people, senior time scale. These are various levels of seniority, and officers are divided into these levels of seniority. From the social justice perspective, you have to remember that reservation policy is applied to the cadre, okay, not to the schedule of establishment. We don't say that Home Secretary will be an OBC, Defense Secretary will be from SC, Finance Secretary will be ST. No, we don't say this at all. All the establishment schedules are neutral. The reservation policy comes on the cadre. Next. So this is what we say, that reservation system is embedded in the cadre, and it is upon the Cadre Controlling Authority to maintain reservation. So how this reservation is maintained? This is maintained by a system called 200-point roster. 200-point roster. What happens in 200-point roster is that if you see the current policy of reservation, this is pre-EWS. So EWS is 10% over and above this. I have not taken that into account because that is a bit different. So today's share in a cadre, government service, is OBC is 27%, SC is 15%, and ST is 7.5%. So how do we operate it in practice? We have something called a 200-point roster. And how do we construct that roster? So this is an example, a typical government paper. Even its look is like that. So what we do is that these are the positions, okay? Position of listing of number of posts. So you can say that you want to recruit 200 IAS officers. So it will start from 1. Okay. So first there are calculated. It shows UR means it is unreserved. So for every category, its share in one post is 0.15. SC. Scheduled drive will be 0.75. OBC is 0.27. I hope you can read from a distance. What happens is we keep adding this, and at the point where this goes above a full number, the fraction gets over a full number, that is where we give the reservation point. Okay, so in the 200 point roster, first will be unreserved, second will be unreserved, third will be unreserved, but OBC 27%, 2 times 27, 54, 81 at the fourth seat, OBC's claim becomes 1 full. So OBC gets first seat at fourth place. Like this it goes on for 200 points. And the net effect of all this arithmetic is that we have 99 reserved seats of OBC, SC, ST, 54, 30 and 15, and 101 unreserved seats, roughly 50. What we also do is we create a register of this. So we start putting names, actual names. So you are unreserved seat XYZ has come, you are second ABC has come, the first OBC candidate listed on this so and so. We put the names. And then this is a rolling thing. So suppose we recruit 150 officers. We will keep going from here up to 150. Next year again we have to recruit. We'll start from 151 number and calculate the reservation. So what this has done is this has ensured a kind of balance in this system. So we get all, as per this, most of the cadres are recruited next. So how does a establishment schedule get filled? How Home Ministry positions will get filled? They will get filled from cadre 1, cadre 2, cadre 3. Okay, so officers will be sent. I showed you the cadre pyramid. From there, officers will be sent here. And then, why there is no allegation that any of the ministries is loaded in favor of Savarnas or OBCs or something like that? How all ministries or departments somehow tend to get a balance, in representation. So that happens through something called, you must have studied probability theory, or you can ask your teacher to teach you. So this is typically, let's say, a probability. They bring an urn with balls to draw and then they teach you probability. So this is an urn. Look at it as a cadre. So there are 8 people here. Following this cadre is following the reservation rules. So 4 are open, 2 are SC, ST, 2 are OBC. Now do that exercise. If DOPT secretary has to blindfold himself and put his hand blindfolded to pick out 2 balls. Okay? Just blindfold and pick out 2 balls. What is the probability that both the balls will be of the same color? So you do this exercise, you will find that it's a 30% chance. Blindfolded. So still blindfolded, 70% chances you will get a mix of color of balls. So a balance will be maintained. But as we all know, nobody is blindfolded, so everybody applies his mind to maintain balance. So the important thing is which pool we are drawing talent from. And that is where our problem with lateral entry has come next. So what happened in lateral entry? The posts which were part of pool, to be filled by various cadres. And cadres have a balance of all types of representation. They suddenly became all single posts where reservation is not applicable. Okay? So what was the implication? If you had filled these 45 posts from cadres, drawing from cadres, what you would have got was, you would have got 23 people with open unreserved category, 12 of OBC, 7 of SC and 3 of ST. Just by any random allocation, somewhere around this would have been the way these 45 posts would be filled. Suddenly it was realized that these 22 posts are gone because none of these are reserved posts. And loss of 22 election, the voice became louder this time. It gained more traction. So it led to the revocation of notification. Next. So we have two types of problems here. First is how many posts you are reserving. For lateral entry, we today don't have any system of reserving any post. So all these posts are single unreserved posts. The second problem is of the talent pool in the private sector. Is the talent pool in the private sector balanced? How do we know? We don't know. I have asked many private sector people. They don't maintain any data point on this. They will have whole the schedule of people who are working with them. So they'll have where they are born and date of birth and so on and so forth, but nobody has this data point as to which category they belong. So we really don't know what is the composition of the talent pool. Unlike IAS or IPS or other services which feed these posts, there we know what is the composition. We know that so many are OBC, so many ST, so many SC, so many ST. We don't have any clue about this. Now there was only one empirical exercise done with respect to this publicly. That is, if you remember, Rahul Gandhi was taking a press conference around the time of elections or something around that. And the hall was filled with media, all corporate controlled media. And they were asking him why you are so much in favor of caste census. So before replying, he just asked them कि आप में से कितने SC, ST, OBC के हैं बताइए. That whole house was full of media. And it so happened that just one person, that poor cameraman, raised his hand and sort of proved his point that this whole thing, there is hardly any SC, ST or OBC reservation or representation in the private sector. But that may not be true. That may not be as skewed as it turned out into, in that particular press conference. But the point is, we don't have data at all. So, in the absence of such data, how can we be sure that even if we reserve these posts as per the constitutional mandate, we will get talent for those categories? Or it will so happen that we reserve the post, we invite applications, and then in the end we say the dreaded word by all SC, ST, OBC community, the dreaded acronym is NFS, which is written after the interview, not found suitable. And then these reserve posts don't get filled up at all. So this is one concern. Whichever way we try to find solution, this is going to be a concern. Next. So the other option is, instead of 200-point roster, something called 13-point roster. Some people call it 14-point roster. That is applied to academic institutions. Okay, so you have a department which has one professor, two associate professors, 4 lecturers, and some research associates. So these are typically departments where 13-point roster is applied. So it has its own share of controversy, which briefly I will tell you. So this is a roster which uses 13 points, a loop of 13 points, like we use 200-point roster, a loop of 200 points. So here what has happened, the 13-point roster as it has been designed, it has the roster points at 4, 7, 8, 12 and 14 for OBC, SC, OBC, OBC, ST. In this mechanism, the percentage allocated 5 out of 14 is 35%, whereas the expected constitutional mandate is 49.5%. So this has already run into controversy. This was its history also. Briefly I will tell you. In 2014, by 2014, all universities had adopted 200-point roster. Then in 2017, somebody went to Allahabad High Court, challenged it, and Supreme Court also upheld it in 2018, then there was again protest, same social justice argument by SC, ST, OBC communities. And 2019, I think, because elections were there, so government promulgated an ordinance saying that 200-point roster should be adopted. So we started from 200 point, went to 13 point. There was protest and we came back to 200 point. Next. So why this controversy happened? This happened because at that time when people started notifying vacancies, a comparison was made. So look at this Rajasthan Central University, for example. They advertised 33 posts. Under the old formula, this was the roster. UR is unreserved, OBC, SC, ST. When they switched to 13-point roster, this became the configuration of vacancies. And the loss of reserved vacancies was this. So they did this analysis for so many universities and they presented this particular chart saying what is the percentage of reserved seats that got converted to unreserved seats. So somewhere 100%, 59, 62, 100. So large percentage of reserved seats from 200-point roster system got converted to unreserved under the 13-point formula. That is why this was scrapped by Government of India in 2019, maybe under the pressure of elections. So, looking at all these things and looking at what Mr. Jitendra Singh has said in his letter, that Prime Minister desires that the concerns of social justice have to be aligned with the concept of lateral entry. So my proposition after studying all this is that even though lateral entry may be desirable, it has its own merits, but the big challenge is going to be aligning this concept with the concept of social justice. And as of today, I don't have any concrete solution or a way out of this imbroglio. Maybe 13-point roster, but it will have its own issues. Maybe just follow 200-point roster, in which case what will happen is you will declare that, okay, Minister